everyone, and welcome to this episode of Software Success. I am Ashley Jones, and I'll be hosting and sharing my love of software with you guys today, as always. And I'm glad to be here, and I've got a special topic that I thought would be good for the holidays, which we'll talk about in a bit. So we'll give just a minute or two to let everybody join. So if you are new here, whether you're watching live or the replay, Software Success is a live presentation that we do every first and third Tuesday of the month, and it is all related to dime embroidery software. I like to share my love of software and all of the things that you can do with it to inspire you, but also help you get the most out of your software. You purchased it, you should be able to use it and get the most out of it to help you with your embroidery in your studio. So I love to share different things that you can do in your software. I use mine every single day, and for things that are not even embroidery. So sometimes I even just use it for designing. So we've got lots of people popping in. So thank you all for being here. Good to see everyone. Welcome. Thank you for being here, Palma, Laura. Good to see you always. Bridget. Cynthia, thanks for being here from Illinois. And Phil Beck, always good to see you. Dawn from Creative Application said it's chilly in Virginia. I bet it is. And Nina says it's even chilly in Fort Myers, which I can attest to. We are having some nice weather down here. So I really love the cooler weather whenever we do actually get it here in Florida. So, and Pamela, also from Florida, from Zephyr Hills, Florida, thanks for being here. Debbie from upstate New York, my old stomping grounds up there. Patricia, thanks for being here. So lots of familiar names. Joanne Banco, thanks for being here. So good to have you here with us as well. And so today we are going to be talking about freestanding embroidery. Now, I did not specifically put lace here because there are other types of freestanding embroidery. And so really these are types of things that you probably have seen before. And I made two ornaments, one with freestanding lace and one with just applique. So there's no lace in there. I just did freestanding applique design, and I'm going to share some tips with you for using your designs and making them freestanding as well. So, and you guys know we always are using our dime software to make these awesome designs and make your designs that you can imagine come to life in the software. So when I say freestanding embroidery, now we may be talking about freestanding lace, which I am going to talk about that and show that today as well. But I wanted to, you guys know the last few times I've been on here, we've been exploring a variety of different ways to do different things in your software, or the same thing in a variety of different of our dime software. So that's kind of what I was wanting to do today as well. So freestanding lace is a type of embroidery that we stitch on a water soluble stabilizer. Once you wash it away, then you're left with nothing but thread. But it's digitized in a way that it holds together when your stabilizer is rinsed away. But there's other types of embroidery out there that I refer to as freestanding. It might not even be the right term, but it's just what I think of. So you might recognize patches. I bet a good portion of you guys have probably either stitched a patch or someone has asked you to stitch a patch because they know you have an embroidery machine. So a patch to me is a freestanding embroidery. It does get stitched on a type of material, but it's not attached to something else. But you might also see this in ornaments, and that's why I thought this would be a great topic, because this time of year, making ornaments, they're great gifts. Actually, all of these are great gift items. Coasters, that's another great freestanding embroidery. If you think of an applique circle stitched on just stabilizer and then the stabilizer removed, then you're left with a freestanding circle, and that would make a coaster. And of course, we always put other decorative things on our coasters, but tags. So think luggage tags, gift tags, or even pet tags. And I'm sure you could think of some other things for tags as well. So what about a napkin ring? Just a rectangle of fabric with that satin edge around it to be turned into a napkin ring. Earrings, magnets. You could just glue magnets onto the back of a freestanding embroidery for a nice little gift, or maybe even something that is specific to maybe a trip or a gathering. A pin or a brooch is another great way to use a freestanding embroidery, especially something like that lace flower there would be a beautiful brooch. Hair clips, just attaching it onto hair clips, and even charms. Now, when I say charms, I'm thinking miniature versions. So like zipper pulls, maybe a key fob, or just a little charm for your keys, wine glass charms, or even charms for your scissors or scissor markers. So there's so many different things that you could do. Now, that is a list that I literally made just right off the top of my head. And I bet if I know all of you embroiderers, you guys probably have other ideas that you could do with freestanding embroidery, or things that you maybe even have made. And so if so, tell us over in the chat. I would love to see. I've done probably a ton that I'm not even thinking of now, but it's really a great use of your embroidery, and it makes great gifts this time of year, because a lot of these things, since they're not attached to another item, they're just you could just tuck it in a card and send it with your greeting card. Now, with freestanding embroidery, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to stitch on a water-soluble stabilizer. That's either going to be the Sew and Wash, like we have to the right. That's a water-soluble stabilizer that actually is woven, so it stands up to a very high stitch count. And so to get that to remove from your stitches, you just put it under warm water and it completely dissolves. But there's also heavy-duty water-soluble stabilizer, and you can see on the left, I'm stitching a patch, and it is clear. So that stabilizer is a clear film that we stitch through. And this stabilizer, we stitch it a lot of times for patches. And so it makes great patches, because even when we tear it away, we don't have to rinse. And the edges, you don't see any of the little fuzzy white left from our tearaway stabilizer, because it's transparent, so you don't see that in the edges. And you could maybe run like a Q-tip, a wet Q-tip around the edge to even help dissolve it even more. But on the right, the Sew and Wash, this is actually in the stitches, and because we do freestanding lace on just thread on stabilizer, you definitely want to rinse this away. Otherwise, you'll see the stabilizer in the stitches if it's still there. So it does get submerged and completely rinsed away. Now, I'm going to talk about both of these types and give you some tips for making your applique design freestanding. You could possibly use an applique you already have, or maybe create one as well. So I'm going to head over into my software. Now, just as we have been doing recently, I am using several different pieces of Dime software, and I'm going to try to make sure to mention each one every time I use a feature. And then I do have a list of software to share with you that these features will come from. But I want to first start with a design, and let's do that ornament design. And I actually got that design from Patch and Applique Maker software. But now I'm just going to borrow this from Patch and Applique Maker. You do not have to have this particular design. You could draw a design or use a different design that maybe you created. Okay, so I'm going to go to the applique designs, because like we said, applique makes a great freestanding embroidery. And I'm going to go to the holiday and the Christmas, and I'm just going to choose the little Christmas ornament here that you saw in the picture. Okay, so this is an applique embroidery design. And so if we stitch this out on water-soluble stabilizer and then remove the stabilizer, you would essentially have a freestanding embroidery. But there's a couple of things I want to point out. Satin stitches are generally, fine for freestanding if you put like an underlay that's like a zigzag underlay, just a little bit more foundation. But your fill stitches, they're not always going to be great for freestanding lace. So I'll show, or for freestanding, they may fall apart. So I'll show you what I might do here. Okay, so this particular design, so the loop around the top is a satin stitch. So if I go over in my software to my underlay settings, and I like to have a zigzag under my satin stitches, it just seems like it holds up better when I rinse the stabilizer away. Another tip for freestanding is to make sure you've got plenty of overlap. If I zoom in here, there's just a little bit of overlap there. So I probably would move this down just so I've got more overlap here. So at least to my center line of these stitches is my rule of thumb. I'm not saying that's the gospel or the be all end all, but it works well for me. Okay, and so now this right here is just a steel stitch, meaning that it is not an applique. It's just a satin stitch of the same width. And so if I wanted to make 100% sure that this was going to be okay when I rinse away my stabilizer, what I might do is just remove this and then just make this an applique. So if I just click, I've ungrouped my design. I'm just going to click on my fill stitch here and press the delete on my keyboard. I'm going to undo that. Or you could select it and then do the delete under your right mouse click. Okay. So now this is not an applique. It's just going to stitch. It's not going to give me a placement and a tack down. So if I want that to give me the placement and the tack down, I need to right mouse click and say convert to an applique. Now I can do this right here because this was created in our software. If this was not created in my software, I'm going to undo. What I might do is I would probably just create my own run stitch and copy it and paste it. I would do one run stitch and then a second run stitch for my tack down. And then I could just leave this steel stitch here as my finishing stitch that's going to cover the edge of my applique. So now how would I do that? Now, our drawing tools, nearly every dime software, you see me use these all the time. So you could use the pen tool, or you could even use, in this case, the rounded rectangle. And that kind of gives me that same shape that I've got going on here. So if I move that out of the way so you could see it, that's what I just drew. I'm going to undo and put it right back in that same space and maybe just adjust it a little bit. So then I'm going to right mouse click and convert to a run stitch. And that's going to give me a placement stitch. And then I could copy and paste this and it would give me a tack down stitch. So if I just copy, paste, I get a tack down and I'm going to make that a different color. So I'm going to right mouse click on my pink one. Okay. Now, right now, these are on top. So I need to move them in the right order. So I'm down here in my sequence view. And I'm going to select both of those, hold down my control key, and I can send to the back, or either I can click and drag. So if I send to the back, it's just one click and it moves them to the very back. So then it's going to stitch placement, tack down. I would put a piece of fabric, and then it's going to stitch that finishing stitch around the edge. Okay. Now, if it's a design that has been created in Perfect Embroidery Pro or any ETS, any embroidery tool shed, I can simply select this is a steel stitch, and I'm basically going to change that to an applique. And by doing that, it automatically, let's watch it stitch out. It automatically gives me, there's my placement and my tack down, and then it's going to do that finishing stitch. And you can see that my main part of my ornament has that as well. Okay, so for the freestanding design, so here's another tip that I recommend. When you are stitching, I'm going to zoom really far in and I'm going to turn off my 3D so that we can see this. So when you are stitching and then let me change the color because it's red on red and it's hard to see. That's not any better. Green, maybe. That's still not the best. Black, maybe. Sometimes the lighter colors, sometimes the darker colors. There we go. Okay, so here we have a placement stitch, which is, it runs right along this red, which is our simulating our fabric. And then we have a tack down that's slightly inset. And then we've got our satin stitch that covers the edge. Now, when you're doing applique, satin stitches are usually 50% on the fabric and 50% off onto your base fabrics. We're generally stitching it onto another item. But when you're doing freestanding embroidery, I prefer personally the majority of my satin stitches to fall on the fabric that's over here in the center, because when we rinse away the stabilizer over here, the stitches have nothing to hold on to anymore when we remove the stabilizer. So I'm going to select that. Because this was created in our software, I can just go over to my settings, and this is my applique settings where it's got the little applique symbol there. And right now it says that the inset is 50%. That means that 50% of my steel stitch, which is my satin edge, and 50% fall on the fabric and 50 off. Okay, so I want the majority to actually stitch on the ornament itself. And so I'm going to increase that number to 80. That's my favorite number. Okay, and you can see I've got a little bit of stitching here, which I want because I want it to cover my raw edge nicely, but the majority of my stitches are actually landing on the fabric. So when I rinse away the stabilizer, I'm going to have a really nice, clean, looking edge. So if you've ever stitched a freestanding design and it looks like your satin stitch is not as wide, or it's kind of wavy, it doesn't lay flat, that might be the case because it actually has nothing to hold on to anymore. And this one here, I would do the same thing. So I'm going to do, let's zoom in and we can see this happen as well without the fabric. You can see that I've got the placement stitch and the tack down is slightly inset. So if I increase that to 80 and click apply, you can see that it has left my placement stitch and my tack down stitch in the right place, but it has moved the finishing stitch, which in this case is a steel stitch, to be the majority on my fabric. So that is my tip for doing freestanding with your applique. Now, let's talk about freestanding lace, and then I'm going to show you if you have a design that is not a built-in applique, what else we can do to make this stitch how it would look good. Okay, so now this same design, because this was created in Dime software, not only can I convert to other types of stitches like applique, fill stitches, run stitches, but I can also convert this to a lace grid. Okay, so lace grid is actually a complex fill design. So if you are working with multiple pieces of Dime software and My Lace Maker is one that you own, you can switch to the complex fill and then you can change the type here. Or let me select my ornament again. If I have Perfect Embroidery Pro, down here in the effects panel, I can just click my different options here. And so if I hover over them, it tells me what each one of these are. So I can tell what type of stitches. And this one right here says grid. If I click, it fills that with the grid. And normally for lace, I do personally like a double pattern for my freestanding lace. Now, I also have the ability to put that satin stitch back around the edge. So I'm going to go over here to my lace maker icon. I can also fill the lace grid right here. And I can say lace grid with border, and it then applies the border. And I'm going to switch that back to our red color. And there we have our freestanding lace ornament. Now, I would do the same thing here. So let's do this because we want some sort of foundation. So I'm going to click My Lace Maker and the lace grid with the border, and it does the conversion for me. So now we went from an applique design to an applique that would be appropriate as a freestanding design to a freestanding lace design. So freestanding lace, again, no fabric. You'll just stitch this on stabilizer and you rinse away and you've got that ornament left completely by itself. Okay. So now this lace grid is only part of My Lace Maker software. Okay. The lace grid is only part of My Lace Maker software. Applique, you can actually create appliques in many of our different software, and we'll talk about that after we get done with our demo. I'll show you all of the different pieces of software that you can do the applique and adjust the settings. So let's see if we have any questions before we go on to the next part and see what everybody's saying. So Christy Kale says, is complex fill only in Lace Maker? So complex fill is only in Perfect Embroidery Pro, but the lace grid is only in My Lace Maker, and the lace grid is considered a complex fill, so it's a type of complex fill. So if you have My Lace Maker, you don't have to have Perfect Embroidery Pro to make the lace grid. And so to make the lace grid automatically with just the clicks, that is My Lace Maker, and you only need that software to create that design. So, and Reen, thanks for being here, Reen. You guys know Reen of Embroidery Garden. She said, I embellished a wedding photo frame with freestanding lace that mimicked a bride's dress. So I've seen that picture and it was gorgeous. So true. And you can put freestanding lace for so many different things. So, and then Dawn from Creative Applique listed a couple of those. So we'll see those two as well that she was saying. Does everyone else have sound? I don't, but I'm on my phone. So hopefully everybody is responding to her that they have sound. So it must be maybe an option on Jackie's phone. And then Creative Applique. So Dawn said bag tags. Yes, it makes great bag tags. Banners and pennants. Absolutely. Package decoration. Joanne Banco says, I totally agree with all of those. And I'm sure you could think of so many different things that you could do with all of these different types. So Bridget Passwater says, use the lace maker together with the sewing projects clothing and making earrings to go together. That is so cool. I love that. So matching earrings to your sewing projects. Very good idea. And many compliments often it's a conversation starter. So I love that. If you've seen Aine McCarthy, our educator, she has matched her lace to her items as well. Sometimes even plucking, a design from her fabric and then mimicking it, as Reen said in My Lace Maker. So, and then Sandra says, can you do a motif as lace? So the motif stitches are not designed to hold together when you rinse out your stabilizer. And you can ask me how I know that. They don't. You may have good luck. So if you fill with a motif and you tested it, it may be one-off that you have great success, but that is not what the motifs are designed for. The lace grid is specifically designed to hold itself together. When you rinse away your stabilizer. So, and then Ashley says, I think you did lace silverware. I did do lace silverware. That's a really good memory, Joanne. Thank you. So yeah, so many different things that you can make out of lace. So you can really get creative with your freestanding lace for sure. Okay. So let's go back over. I think we got all the questions answered. And let's talk about creating other freestanding designs. So I'm going to go, I actually created a bunch that I just wanted to talk about. Let me see if I saved my design where I could actually get to it. That would have been smart, right? And so here and our freestanding and here. So here I was just playing and I made a bunch of shapes and designs. So let's zoom in and talk about these and what different things that you could do with these. So here is an applique sports ball that I just put a name over, and that sports ball, this soccer ball, could be a gift tag, it could be a coaster, it could be even a banner or pendant if you put like a little eyelet in here, as Dawn mentioned from Creative Applique. And then here, these are actually from Patch and Applique Maker, and they are freestanding little gift tags or like jar toppers. So that's another great use of them, and I'll show you how to get to those as well. And then here are some other ones that I've created. So this rectangle here is just the rectangle that we used to make the little topper on the bulb. This one here, the Christmas ornament down here. And I just made it into a coaster shape and then added another rectangle and the little gold rectangle as a belt so that it would make kind of a coaster that looked like Santa's belt. And let me zoom out here. And let's see what else we got. So these four here, these are what I was just playing with. This is another shape. I'm going to zoom in right here. This is another shape. So built into your artwork tools, you have this flower shape that you can draw, and that makes a really decorative scalloped edge. This particular one, I did use the morph feature. Morph is a feature only in cut and stitch where it will actually adjust the designs for you. So we'll see what that's all about. So those I was thinking would be cute coasters. Now here I've got an applique on a coaster, so it's really an applique on an applique, right? Ornaments like for the holidays. So that would be a really cute ornament for a gift. The runs with scissors. This is a patch that you could stitch and just give to someone. I love that little saying on there, runs with scissors. And then I've got the little lace charm here, but let's look at the letters. So this actually goes kind of back to what Dawn from Creative Appliques was saying. So these are applique letters. And all I did was add an eyelet, which is essentially just a circle with a steel stitch. It's going to stitch, and then I can use my punch tool and punch a hole there, or either your if you've got a a sharp pointed tool just to put some ribbon or twine through there. So you could essentially, you can tell I was working on this. I'm already thinking about the new year. So happy new year. So you could make a little banner even, because each one of these letters then could be freestanding. So really easy to do. Okay, so let's make the coaster from scratch, and then I'm going to show you how where these other little designs came from in Patch and Applique Maker. So nearly every dime software has drawing tools. And I'm just going to use this rounded artwork tool. So if you click the plus next to your artwork tool and choose rounded, and then click and drag on the screen, and it'll make your shape. It'll draw your shape. Okay. Now I've told you guys this numerous times, but we may have some new people, but when you do this, there's no stitches here. This is only artwork. If I look over on my sequence view here, it says artwork 0. That means there are 0 stitches, and this is just an artwork shape. But I can turn artwork shapes into stitches by choosing right mouse click and convert to. Now my list might be longer than yours because I have all dime software. So you might not have all of them. And then you can convert that into different types of stitches. First, let's set our size. So I select it by clicking on it. I'm going to go over here to my transform tab, this purple tab, and then I can set the size. To me, a coaster is about, a 4-inch coaster. You may want to make it like 3 3/4 if you want it to fit in your 4x4 hoop. Now, it just so happens that I almost drew a perfect square, but I did not. So I'm going to uncheck the maintain aspect ratio, and I'm going to put a 5 there and click apply. Okay. So now I've got this perfect square. So we're going to turn that into an applique. Now I'm going to do a right mouse click, get out of my zoom tool. Let me go back to my select tool, right mouse click, convert to applique. And remember, that's going to give me a placement and a tack down. If I stitch this on water soluble stabilizer, then I've got a freestanding shape here. To get that nice clean edge, I'm going to go over to my properties, my applique properties here, and I'm going to set the inset to 80%. Now, again, 80% is my favorite number. Doesn't mean it has to be your favorite number. You may like 75, you may like 90. So play around and see. 80 is my favorite setting. And then I'm going to change this from blue to red because we're going to make it look like Santa's belt, right? So I'm going to do a right mouse click to change that to my red color chip. Okay. And now let's draw another shape here. And so I'm going to use my rectangle this time, and then click and drag, and right mouse click, convert to applique. Okay, whoop, I accidentally clicked away. And that is going to be Santa's belt. And I'm going to right mouse click on black to make it black. Now, I know somebody is saying this is really far outside of our, our coaster, which I did that on purpose. And now let's use that rounded shape again to make the belt. Okay. Now remember earlier, I just click and drag so I can make a rectangle or a square. And so I'm going to undo and I'm going to show you a trick. If you know you want it to be a perfect square or perfect circle, hold down your shift key when you start dragging. And no matter where I go, you can see I get a square every time. Okay. And then I drag that the size that I think I want it. I'm going to move that down here. And then it was not quite as big as I want it, so I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. And for this, I don't necessarily need it to be an applique because I just wanted the decorative for a gold buckle. So I'm going to right mouse click, convert to a steel stitch. Now, if you're in one of Dime software that does not have the steel as the option, but you do have applique, you can do applique and just not put fabric, or you could actually put gold fabric there or something that would simulate the buckle. But my plan was just to have it stitch as an open design. And I'm going to right mouse click on my gold color down here. Okay. So now to make that, somebody might ask, I don't know if I said it again, but to make that perfect square, I held down my shift key. I meant to say that again. Okay. So I'm going to select everything by click and dragging, and then I'm going to click to center align everything. Okay. Looks great to me. Okay, so now somebody out there is thinking we don't want this overlap, and I agree. And so I'm going to send this black to the back, and it is underneath my red. So when I save this, it's actually going to cut away that excess for my design here. Okay. And so I'm going to make it just a smidge smaller because we don't need all that. I was just over exaggerating, and we're going to save it and see what happens. Okay. There's another way that you can break these ends up, and I'll show you that whenever we come back. But let's save it. File, save as. Now you always want to save as your working file. So I'm going to call this Santa belt coaster. So that I can get back and edit it easily. And I'm going to just put that right on my desktop. And I am going to save it a second time as a machine file format. So I'm going to choose my PES, but any file format that you need for your machine will work. And I'm going to click save. Okay. So now we've got our C2S file, which is our working file. If I needed to get back to it, I could, but I'm going to leave mine open, and I'm going to choose file and open, and let's go open our PES file. Okay. So Santa belt, the PES version. Oh, and you know what? This is why we test. Look what it did. Because I sent it back, I wanted it to remove any overlapping. And I was thinking that the software would just move these overlaps here, but it did not. It's smarter than I am. And so it knows that that fabric is going to be down, and then it's only going to be left with these little pieces. So in my mind's eye, that would have worked, but it did not. Okay, so let's try. I'm going to go back to the C2S. So this is my life that you guys are seeing. This is exactly what I do. Now let's bring that forward, because you have to have overlapping areas for this to cut out. So let's see what happens when we save here. So for this, I'm going to bring it back forward in front of my red. Okay. And so now it's the red, the black, and the yellow. And so my idea was, I was thinking it would cut the ends off if I moved it to the back. And so now let's save it and see what happens. And I'm going to show you how to fix it regardless of what the machine does, what the computer does automatically. I'm going to show you how to make that happen. So this time we already saved our C2S file. So I'm going to save my PES file again and click save, and it's going to say, do you want to overwrite? And I'm going to say yes. And then let's do file open and scroll down, and I'm looking for the PES one. Okay. And now you can see that it actually cut out those edges, but this is too wide. Okay. But that's okay. So let's select all 3 pieces of the belt part and then just resize those so that they are the same width as my coaster. Okay. That's one way to do it. Especially if you want the black to be on top. Okay. And there you go. Now, the reason I had to exaggerate it, let's go back to our regular coaster or our C2S file. If you have these lined up right on top of each other, it actually will not remove this because this is satin stitches on top of satin stitches. In order for it to cut away, you have to have it overlapping. So I exaggerated it so that when I was done, I'm going to do my undo key here. Then it removed those stitches. If you don't have it overlapping, completely overlapping, it wouldn't completely do it. Now, would this be cute if you just left the belt extended? I mean, I think it would. So you certainly could do that as well. But let's talk about how you can manually remove these if you really just wanted your red to be all the way around the edge and then your black to butt right up to the edge here. So I'm going to right mouse click and say break up path. We've used breakup path before, and what it does is it separates out my placement and my tack down from that last stitch. When it does this, you need to make sure that you change colors if you do this, because otherwise it's not going to stop. But if you leave it as an applique, it will stop because it'll do that automatically for you. So now let me select those because I actually need to make it fit my coaster here. So I'm going to just drag that in so that my black is overlapping my red, just like that. And now I want to get rid of these stitches on the end here. Okay. And so let's go to the applique, and I'm going to use our shape tool. The shape tool allows me to split this line. So I can right mouse click, split line, and do it again here. Right mouse click, split line. And now it sees this part here as separate. And then I can just delete it. Okay. And now I can do the same thing on this end, but here we've got our run stitch placement and tack down. And so if we left it like this, then our raw edge would be exposed. So we also need to do something to the red edge of our coaster, which is very similar. I'm going to right mouse click and break up path, and that separates out so that I can bring that satin stitch to stitch after the black, but I still get my placement and my tack down. So let me change these colors and I'll show you what I mean. So let's watch our slow redraw here. So break up path allows you to separate out the run stitch, the placement, and the tack down of an applique. Applique object automatically has a placement and a tack down and a finishing stitch. Okay, so let's watch the stitch out. So I'm going to get a placement stitch for my fabric for my coaster and then a tack down. And then it's going to do a placement stitch for the belt and then the tack down for the belt. And then it's going to do the satin stitch. Now, remember, we didn't break up the other end, so we need to do that. And then it's going to do the red finishing stitch. So you get a nice finished stitch along the edge and then the Santa's belt there. Okay. So, and when we change this, you wanted to change that. We changed that applique inset. Make sure you change that before you start breaking it up and saving it and all of that. Okay. And the last thing that we would need to do here, let's do the same thing. I'm going to choose my shape tool, right mouse click, split line, and then select it again, right mouse click and split line. Now that is a separate piece. If I go back to my select tool and press the delete on my keyboard, now we no longer have that piece. Okay, so that's another way that you can do that if you want it in the right order. And to me, as far as stitching out appropriately, this to me would be the appropriate way to stitch it out. But if you like this easy way here, it's another easy way to stitch. And in this one, where you get the placement stitch and the tack down, and then you get the finishing stitch, and then his belt's gonna stitch the complete stitch there. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so let's see if we have any questions before we go into those templates for the applique. So let's see what we got here. Is that Parison? Maybe? Can you show the flip-flops? Yeah, the flip-flops that are in the patch and applique maker. Is that what you meant? And then what do you want me to do to the flip-flops? You want to make the flip-flops as a patch or as freestanding lace? So tell me that and I'll do the flip-flops for you. So hey, Harriet Ann, thanks for joining. My friend Stephanie from Caesar, thanks for being here. And then Joanne was talking about the silverware design. So I don't see any other questions because that was the last thing that I saw from Joanne. So let's go back over and talk about those templates, and then we can go and talk about the flip-flops as well. So back over into the software, I'm going to start a new page. Another great place to get designs that are good freestanding is also Patch and Applique Maker is a big part of this presentation because it's full of appliques that we can then adjust to be freestanding. So in Patch and Applique Maker, not only do we have the library that's full of applique designs, we also have an option for the Patch Wizard. So if you click on the Patch Wizard and then you click the Open option, there's templates in here that are pre-designed for you that you can just change the name on. So if you go down to the labels and tags, these are already set and ready to go. And let's say you wanted to make a tag for a gift tag. This one's set up for a cruise, but you could put name, apply, and then maybe this is a thank you gift, or maybe it is a Christmas gift, whatever you want it to be. So I'm just going to put thank you and apply. And these little boxes are, you can put a little image here. So I can click change and you can put a little design here. Now, if this was going to be a holiday one, this would be a great place to put a cute little holiday design. Or if it's just a gift or a birthday, whatever you want it to be. So we scroll down here and maybe put a little gift box in there. And I'm going to say apply. And we're going to just move that over here when it gets on the screen. So this is a pre-created gift tag for you. And if I select this, and the name and the text, I can just choose my centering option and just center it because it had a spot for 2 little designs, but I don't have to have those. I could also not have any design on here, and I could actually just move these closer together. Okay. And so this little design is actually built in to the Patch and Applique Maker software, Patch Wizard. Okay, so Patch Wizard, click open, and then you got these options here that you can choose from. Okay, so really easy, right? Now, as far as the letters, let's talk about that. So, I'll leave that in case we have to come back to it. So the text, okay? So if I choose my text tool and put the text on the screen, and then I'm just going to create a word, okay? And in our Word Art and Stitches, Patch and Applique Maker, and I think that's the only 2. There may be, I think there's one applique font in the Embroidery Toolshed Plus, but choose your applique font. You could also choose a true type font and make it an applique, but this is a really good one. And then I'm going to increase the size. So let's say we want these letters to be like 3 inches, and it resize those. And if you want these to be individual banners that you put like a ribbon or something through it, you could put a little eyelet here. So let's make our eyelet. So I'm going to go up. You guys know I use these artwork tools all the time. So let's choose our ellipse and let's practice our perfect circle. So remember, if I click and drag, I can get an oval of different shapes and sizes. But if I hold down my shift key and click and drag, I get a perfect circle. Okay, now I'm going to put that over here, and that's a pretty decent size. I would make it a smidge smaller. This one's almost a 1/2 inch. So if I do like a 0.3 and say maintain aspect ratio, it'll resize it. And then I'm going to change that to my steel stitch. So I'm going to right mouse click, convert to a steel. Okay. Or if you have Perfect Embroidery Pro, you can go to your effects panel and choose your steel option. And you might have the steel icon for convert to on your toolbar. So you could also do that. But then it gives me an eyelet so that whenever I punch out this opening, then it's not going to fray the edges of my design. And now all I have to do is really copy it and paste it. So if I copy and paste, I can make these. You can also use the, I hit copy, but I didn't do the paste. So if I move that out of the way, there's my pasted one. You can also do duplicate. So if I right mouse click and choose duplicate, if you have duplicate in your software, it means that every time I click, it's going to drop that same design. So if I zoom out, I can just click right where I want that eyelet to go. And then here I'd probably do 2 and here and here. Now I would probably select all those and just align them center so that I at least know that they're all where I want them to be. And then this one's a little too close, so I might move that over a bit, and the same thing here. But then when I stitch these, I can use them as freestanding applique letters, okay? And the same thing is here. I would probably make these, the inset 80%. This, again, personal preference. You might want yours a little less, a little more. But now when I stitch this on a water-soluble stabilizer, it's going to be freestanding letters that I can string up. And you could make this say so many different things, right? And so the steel stitch is in quite a few of our different software. And so that question, Sharon just asked that. So let me go over and show that. So if I go back to my PowerPoint here, and this is what I was talking about on the inset. So the you can see this really well, I think, in these pictures, but I think you guys probably got the idea too from there. But you can really see that this center line right here, I have 50 and 50. And then this one here, this is actually my placement, is this outer one, even though it seems like it's this one, but it's not. It's that one. So you've got 80% of it that's going to fall on the fabric. Okay. So now the steel stitch is part of Perfect Embroidery Pro, Word Art and Stitches, My Quilt Embellisher, My Lace Maker, Patch and Applique Maker, and Special FX software. The applique, if you just want to convert it to an applique and you've got that option for doing that 80% inset, the Perfect Embroidery Pro, Word Art and Stitches, My Quilt Embellisher, Patch and Applique Maker, Cut and Stitch, and Special FX software. So the steel stitch is essentially a satin stitch, but it's all the same width. A satin stitch can, change sizes as it goes. Like you can have it wide in an area and get narrow, wide and narrow. But a steel stitch is the same width all the way around. Okay, and then so Nanette, this I didn't even read your question, but that's kind of essentially it. So a satin stitch around the edge, a steel stitch is a satin stitch. I really should say column stitch instead of satin and steel. So a column stitch, as you guys know, is you've got a column of stitches and there's, kind of like an opening in the center or down the center. Or, yeah, not really an opening, but you guys know what I mean, because we're stitching on the left and the right. Okay. A satin stitch is perfectly fine. And a steel stitch is a satin stitch that is all the same width. So really we're just talking about a column stitch around the edge. So hopefully that cleared it up. Now let me give you a tip with the steel stitch for doing your inset. And then I think that we will be finishing up. Okay. So I'm going to go and draw a circle, and I'm going to hold down my shift key to make it a perfect circle. And then I am going to, let's say you don't have the applique feature in your software, whichever one you're using, but you do have run stitch and steel stitch, which I think that if you've got steel stitch, you probably have applique, but this is just another scenario of what you could do. Okay. So an applique generally is a placement, a tack down, and then a finishing stitch. So that steel stitch, which is our column stitch that goes around the edge, we're going to inset that. Okay. So I'm going to use this example if you need to do this manually. So I'm going to turn this one into a run stitch. So I'm going to click my run stitch option. I'm going to copy it, paste it, and then change the color. So now I've got 2 run stitches, and then I'm going to copy paste. So now I've got 3 run stitches, and I'm going to change the color again. But this last run stitch, I'm going to make that a steel stitch. Okay. So now let's watch this stitch out. So we just manually made applique. We've got a placement, we've got a tack down, and we've got the finishing stitch, which is our column stitch or our steel stitch. Okay. Now, because we can't just change the inset on our steel stitch to make that fall more on the fabric, here's what I would do instead. So I'm going to, let's make this a really dark color. I'm going to make that blue, and we'll make our first one red, and this one as the light color so that we can really see it. So for the green, I'm going to use my transform option. This is something I rarely use, but sometimes it's very useful. A lot of times I just put in the exact size I need. Well, this, I don't know the exact size I need for this to be inset just slightly. So I can actually just reduce this by a percentage. So I'm going to put 97% and click apply. And you can see that it made that just smaller and it left it centered everywhere. So I'm going to turn off my 3D and zoom in so that you can see that that dark line on the outside is my placement and tack down. And you can see how my satin stitch or my steel stitch here is offset, where the majority of it is going to fall in the interior of my design. Now I'm going to do an undo so that you can see that when it's centered 50-50, see how my line, my placement, and my tack down, because we just copied and pasted right on top of each other, and it runs right down the center. So if I do my redo, when I changed that percentage here, you can see that it inset it. So for your resize option here, play with this percentage sometimes. Sometimes we don't know what size. We just know we want it 20% smaller or 10% larger or whatever. So using that percentage there to resize, that's my extra tip for you for today. So, and then Dalu, thanks for joining from Chicago. And so I think that that's all. I don't see any other questions popping up from you guys. So if you, do have questions after, you guys know that you can find me and the rest of our education team over on our Facebook user group. So make sure you look over there if you need additional help. So, but today, mostly I use the applique, and we just talked about doing the run and the steel, and I used my artwork draw tool all the time. So the convert to applique in those software, again, if you're watching the replay or even if you're watching live, you can take a screenshot here to remember which features are available. Now, in 2 weeks, December the 17th, I will see you again for one last software success of the year. And I thought this was a great follow-up to what we're talking about today. Have you ever had an applique design or a patch design that you wish that you could create a cut file for your digital cutter to cut it out? So I'm going to show you how to do that, not only with the built-in designs in 2 weeks, but also if you have an applique design that you purchased from your favorite designer, I'm going to show you how you can create a cut file from that design using Dime software. And if you don't have a digital cutter, don't feel like you need to skip that software success, because In that presentation, I can also show you how you can create a template so that you could pre-cut your applique or patch shapes with your scissors. So you do not have to have a cutter. You can also use your scissors. I'm just going to be showing you how to get the right size cut file, how to save it, how to export it, and how to save it if you want to print a file as well. So make sure you join me in 2 weeks for learning how to create those cut files, either to cut with your scissors or to cut with your digital cutter. So, and as always, I talked about several different pieces of our software today. We talked about My Lace Maker, creating freestanding lace, a lot about Patch and Applique Maker. I did use some features from our Perfect Embroidery Pro as well. So if you don't own the particular software that I was talking about today, you can try any dime software for free. If you have our free embroidery tool shed in that shopping cart area to the bottom right, green shopping cart, click that ellipsis option, the dot, 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 and you can try any of the software. You get a demo version. You can play with all the features. It just will not let you save. If you saw something that you would like to purchase, check with your local dealer. I always love it when we support local. Not to mention, it also gives you another avenue for education. You've got someone you can go to in person and ask questions, plus take advantage of all of Dime's free education as well. If you don't have a dealer local, you can always check our website for any specials that we have as well. Okay, guys, so until another software success, I'll say bye for now, and thank you all for joining me.